What's going on, you bunch of heathens? Today we are checking out a video coming from the Tank Museum. It's called the Patton Tank Paradox. Seemed really interesting, so I wanted to check it out. So here we are. Make sure you guys check out the original. It's linked down below. And without further ado, let's jump in.
M46, M47, M48, and M60. They saw action in Korea, Vietnam, the Gulf, and held the line in the Cold War.
For almost 40 years, the US produced a succession of good tanks.
Yeah,
they never seemed
all
quite
pretty good
enough for the top brass.
Time after time, designers sought a perfection that seemed to lay out of reach until the arrival of the step-changing M1 Abrams.
God, the fucking Abrams. Perfection incarnate. Practically, at least. Like, it is just... I don't care who you are. Like, other tanks sure are fucking iconic and all that. But... the Abrams just has that it factor, you know? Of just being it. I love it.
Till then, we have what can be called the Patton family, a series of tanks that are closely related, but only ever intended to be temporary until the next big thing arrived. This is the story of that family of tanks. Tanks the US failed to replace time after time.
Yet which, despite this, ended up becoming the armoured backbone of the free world during the Cold War.
Not even just that. We also... there's still... I'm pretty sure there's still countries today out there that still use them. At least like the M60 and whatnot. And... yeah. They're still getting used. So yeah, no, they're still putting in work.
Towards the end of World War II, the M26 Pershing, seen here dueling with a Panther in Cologne, gave the US Army the capacity
this is
to
very
punch back
famous.
at the latest heavy German armour.
It's a very famous tank battle.
M3 90mm main gun, thick armour, and a new torsion bar suspension system to the battlefield. It is the father of the Patton family of tanks, but it had a problem. Its 500 horsepower GAF V8 engine
so underpowered?
automatic transmission left the 42 metric ton tank rather underpowered.
In 1948, the Americans began work on a new tank to replace it, the T-42. But they knew it wouldn't be ready before the Pershing became obsolete.
And so, to use a phrase you'll hear several times throughout this video, they would need a stopgap to tide them over. Enter the M46, the first tank to carry the name Patton, after... do we really need to explain who?
The M46 was an upgrade applied to half the 2,202 Pershings. So the first Patton was really just a better Pershing. The main difference between the M26 and the M46 was a new powertrain, and it's this that the Patton family over the decades all have in common. It consists of a version of the Continental AV1790 V12 engine, coupled with an Allison CD850 cross-drive transmission. It took up less space and generated 810 horsepower rather than 500.
With an adequate
that's
tank
still
secured,
insane.
it was time to
still insane to me that an engine that big, a V12, like 812, not bad whatsoever. But just how few horsepower they could get out of certain engines is just insane to me. Like, what was it? It was on Grand Tour. It was something like a 7 or 8 liter fucking V8 only making, God, how much was it? Like 200 horsepower or something? Just insane to me.
Pershing's real replacement, the T-42.
This would have had a better protected turret with a more powerful M36 90mm gun and an advanced stereoscopic rangefinder, replacing the Patton's telescopic sight. The hull would have 5 road wheels and a much more compact 6-cylinder AOS 895 engine generating 500 horsepower. This was a big step down in engine power from the M46,
Very,
10 horsepower.
very much so.
But the T42 was intended to weigh quite a lot less at 34 tons, so the army thought it would be okay.
It wasn't. And when they
Big
began
surprise.
automotive testing on the T42 in late 1950, they discovered it lacked sufficient power and offered no greater mobility than the obsolete Sherman. It wasn't looking great, and work would continue long enough to see the stopgap M46 needing to be replaced with another stopgap.
M47. It's my guess
As
anyway.
the Korean War began in June 1950, the US still had to settle on an adequate tank to meet its modern requirements.
Such was the concern, the US Army declared a tank crisis and instigated a crash program to develop as many tanks as quickly as possible. Now, this program ended up with a bunch of weird, wonderful, and rather troubled designs like this M103, which you can learn more about here.
In the end,
The M103. The tank I do not use in War Thunder. Have had it for a while, I just don't
the
use it.
M46 was sent to fight in the Korean War in 1950, eventually replacing all Pershings in use during the conflict, as well as most of the Shermans.
Against North Korean T-34s, it did perform well, but it was aging and the promised T-42 was still in the testing phase. Something needed to fill the gap. The solution was a tank that would mount the T-42's turret, which was at least working well, on the proven hull and powertrain of the M46. This was the M47, the second Patton and the second to be a stopgap. It entered production in April.
I always forget. War Thunder gives me a warped sense of like scale when it comes to these tanks, because I always forget how big they are. Sometimes you'll see a tank in War Thunder, it's like, oh, that's a small fucking tank. Like that's almost fucking tiny. And then you actually see someone next to one and it's just like, holy shit, never mind, I was wrong, that's huge. Which just makes me think, what do some of the tanks that look absolutely humongous in game actually look like in real life? You know?
1951.
Before we move on, a thank you from me for watching. And if you appreciate what we're doing as not-for-profit, please give us a like to help get this video out to a wider audience.
Already did.
And if you'd like to help further, click the link here to become a YouTube member.
The M47 really was intended as a temporary tank, but in the end, 8,576 were built.
God, quite
It
a
never made it out
few
to Korea,
then.
so it never saw action with the US. But it was successfully exported to 22 other nations around the world, with some keeping it in service until the 1990s. Perhaps its most famous crewman, and one that shows the reach the M47 would have, was Arnold Schwarzenegger, who drove the M47 during his national service with the Austrian Army in 1965.
Oh! That's insane, actually. That's actually really cool. Sorry, guys, I had to take a phone call really quick.
Meanwhile, time was almost up for the T-42. In a July 1953 trial to test the fuel economy between a T-42 and an M4A3 Sherman, the trial had to be halted due to mechanical failures and transmission failures on the T-42.
That's not
Realizing the T-42 offered nothing the Pattons didn't, it was finally cancelled in October 1954. Luckily, the Americans had something ready to go.
I'm sorry, name a better fucking duo than the government deciding to put a shitload of time and even more money into creating a weapon system, whether it's a tank or putting money into anything, just for them to cancel it. I mean, look at the fucking, God, I don't even remember what was it, the new was it an M10? Was that what it was called? The M10 Booker? You know what I'm talking about? The fucking, the more or less IFB type thing was supposed to, you know, keep up with troops and whatnot to help them out in more of an actual, I don't know, actual light tank / infantry support thing. And from what I heard, it got canceled. The project got canceled. Despite everyone having glowing praise for it, it actually got canceled.
Go.
Or however much money they decided to put into fucking ACU for a camo that didn't work.
Before US Army units had even begun receiving the M47, its replacement was well on the way. The M48 had existed in model form from February 1951.
I don't know how I forgot the M48.
Tested from February 1952. It entered service that July, although the legacy of the crash program meant that there were significant issues with some of the earlier vehicles.
Of course.
This was mainly focused around the new turret's fire control system. The Patton powertrain seems to have held up. The M48 became famous as the tank crewed by Elvis Presley during his national service. He served in the 1st Medium Tank Battalion, 32nd Armoured Regiment in the 3rd Armoured Division in West Germany during the Cold War. He served between 1958 and 1960. He was a fan. When asked if the soberness of his army service changed his attitudes towards rock and roll music, he replied,
"No, it hasn't. It hasn't changed my mind because I was in tanks for a long time, you see, and they rock and roll quite a bit."
12,000
yeah, it's the fucking military. What you mean?
2 M48s were built. The Americans used it in Vietnam, and some of its 18 other users took it to war, including Israel and Pakistan. Some are still being used in 2025.
Oh, so is the M60 then, like I said.
The US Army knew it would need a replacement tank. Specifically, they were considering 2 options. The first option would essentially be an upgraded M48 with a diesel AVDS 1790 engine, some sort of composite armor array package, and the 105mm M68 gun. However, as one general put it, the Bureau of the Budget has decided, in its infinite wisdom, that we wouldn't buy any more M48s. So this tank would need a new name. It was to be called the M60.
The other was a completely new tank, the T-95. Design work on the T-95 began in 1954, with the first vehicles built in mid-1957. Various combinations of advanced armament and fire control systems were tried and tested. The preferred combination used the Optar pulsed light-based rangefinder and the T-208 90mm smoothbore gun, which had a 70% greater muzzle velocity than the M48 own 90mm. But the T-95 had its own laundry list of problems. Automotive testing in 1958 revealed it was no more mobile across country than the latest M48A2, and it had a lower range, just 145 miles. The Optar rangefinder was inaccurate in bad weather and difficult to use, and the gun suffered from inconsistent accuracy. By late 1958, the development of the T-95 was proceeding so slowly, the Army had totally lost faith in the project. Doubting it would deliver anything more capable than the alternatives of modernised M48s or new M60s, they decided the whole thing was a waste of time and cancelled it in July 1960.
More money down the drain.
With its high-tech replacement cancelled, the M48 would be replaced, at least temporarily, from March 1959 by essentially an upgrade of itself, the M60. The only member of the Patton family not intended to be a stopgap was now being replaced with a stopgap.
Oh, great. That's fucking lovely, ain't it? Just, yeah, we purpose-built this one thing. Now we're getting rid of it with a stopgap because reasons. I mean, it did give us a
the M60
pretty
was
looking
never
tank.
named Patton, but I mean, just look at it. It is clearly a member of the family.
Once again, this Patton wasn't considered a long-term option, and work on replacing it began almost immediately. This project was called the Main Battle Tank Mid-Range. In this context, mid-range refers to timescale, the aim being to have a production-ready design in about 5 years. By 1963, a wide range of components were being considered for this program, and some were tested on old T-95 hulls. These included the Shillelagh gun-launched missile in a compact turret, laser rangefinders, gas turbine engines, and hydropneumatic suspension. Some of them worked, some of them weren't quite ready yet.
However, before all of this
Okay, the Shillelagh. I know the Sheridan got it, and then laser rangefinder didn't show up till later. I don't think.
Final design, MBT-MR was overtaken by events and cancelled.
Because in August 1963, the United States and West Germany signed an agreement to develop a new tank to replace their Pattons, the MBT-70.
This was a very advanced design, but it would be riddled with problems.
It will use an auto-loaded 152mm gun that could also fire the Shillelagh missile.
Oh,
A stabilized
it's an autoloader?
capsule in the turret for the driver, which would keep him facing forwards, adjustable height suspension, and a fully stabilized fire control system. By 1969, many of the MBT-70's technical problems were well on the way to being resolved, but there were still some disagreements between the two nations over components and requirements, and ultimately another, more lethal problem came along. It was just too expensive. So America and Germany decided to go their separate ways.
For the Americans, the next step was to replace the M60 with a cheaper version of MBT-70, the XM803, but this proved still far too expensive.
On top of this, by 1971,
Which is funny considering this is the US we're talking about here.
The Shillelagh missile combination was falling out of favour due to continual problems and bad experiences in Vietnam, where it was being used on the M551 Sheridan.
There's
As a
the
result,
Sheridan.
the whole project was cancelled and the army started again, this time with a tighter budget.
They would eventually deliver something game-changing, but in the meantime, the M60 will have to soldier on a little longer. And this meant it would have to be upgraded.
It's another upgrade. It's fine.
New models of both the M48 and the
here
M60
comes the GM
would be
Chrysler,
introduced
and I
over
forget
the
the
next
other-
decade, incorporating enhancements to improve firepower and mobility.
Who's the other fucking company that did it? It was... I want to say... It was a company you wouldn't think to do it. Was it Lockheed or Skunk Works? Something like that, I want to say.
The M48 had begun receiving the diesel AVDS 1790 engine from 1963, and it was this M48A3 model that the Americans used in Vietnam. From 1975, the M48A5 model mounted the 105mm M68 gun, as on the M60. Now, this served with second-line units until May 1987. The M60A1 saw a dizzying series of improvements throughout the 1970s. The add-on stabilizer, or AOS, allowed for accurate firing on the move. This was followed by the reliability improved selected equipment, or...
Yeah, it's... Oh, the Rise package. Yeah, no, the fact that the Shermans and whatnot had stabilizers, but then the US, for whatever reason afterwards, on a shitload of their tanks decided, you know what, we don't need those, really does fucking baffle me to no end. Being able to cruise, even if it was a 20 mile an hour stabilizer, it still baffles me to no end over the fact that we decided to not use them anymore.
Rise package for the engine, and finally, the infrared searchlights function was replaced by the passive night vision equipment. The addition of a laser rangefinder and new fire control system led to the M60A3 designation. These were later upgraded with thermal night sights to become the ultimate M60A3 TTS.
Sexy.
At this point, it was considered a very good, but not great tank. But at last, a design was emerging that satisfied the expectations and budget of the US Army.
The M1 Abrams was much more mobile and better protected than the M60. But using $1972 for consistency, around 2/3 of the cost of an XM803.
Wait,
Arriving
really?
in 1980, the M1 Abrams...
Really? I would not have expected that. Who the... fucking expensive was the XM803 then? If it was, no wonder we didn't want it. That is hella
Signaled
expensive.
the end of the Patton dynasty, and production of the stopgap M60 finally ended in 1987 after 28 years and 13,634 tanks.
After a final swan song with the US Marine Corps in the 1991 Gulf War, the M60 was finally retired.
I don't remember what it was. I was watching something, reading something, and it mentioned Marines using the M60 in the Gulf War, and I was like, wait, did we? I thought it was phased out by then. And I had to look it up, and it's like, oh yeah, no, we used them. And I was like, I was actually kind of flabbergasted by it, because I was like, really? Like, it didn't make sense to me.
Retired from US service in May 1997.
But the Patton went out on a high. Many M60A3 TTS crewmen who converted onto the Abrams felt the new tank's thermal sight was a definite step down from what they were used to.
And notice how I said M60s were retired. Not all Pattons. Even in 2025, a very distant relative still plays a vital role in the US Army. If the latest all-singing, all-dancing M1A2 set of V3 Abrams breaks down, the crew will call in an M88A2 recovery vehicle.
Fuck yeah.
Now, maybe it's stretching things a bit to call this a Patton, but it still has that AVDS 1790 engine, and back in the late 50s when it was first designed, the
Nah, I'd call that a Patton. It has literally the beating heart of the Patton. I'd
starting
call it
point
that.
was an M48.
The M48, should it see service in any new conflict, will prove to be an invaluable weapon in America's defense arsenal.
So why did the Pattons last so long, and why was the US Army caught in a spiral of stopgaps? Well, maybe it was because every single failed attempt to replace the Patton was some kind of high-tech project that they simply couldn't get to work.
The M1 Abrams, on the other hand, had a stricter budget, and the innovation, or at least the expectations, was reined in, as we saw with the thermal sight. Maybe that's the answer.
The Pattons weren't spectacular, but they were never intended to be. Perhaps the key was the limitations imposed by the fact that they were temporary solutions. Maybe that's why the Patton family succeeded, where so many of their intended replacements failed. What do you think? Are you a Patton fan? Which of its replacements would you like to have seen succeed? Let us know in the comments below.
Honestly, I don't know. They were all had their own fucking. Yeah, let's skip ahead to the lineup. Come on, where is it? God dang it. M46, M47, M48, and the M60. Well, these two are still getting use, so they succeeded. I'd say either the 46 or the 47, honestly. Those were both pretty good fucking tanks, all things considered, for what they were. But, I mean, yeah, I don't know what else you would say. Well, that was the Tank Museum. Obviously love those guys. They're fucking great. Make sure you guys check out the original video. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. And until next time, you guys take care of yourselves. See ya.